Get ready for a boatload of inspiration. Today we talk with Tara Massey about how God used a major burnout in her life to reintroduce her to her creativity and move her on to bigger and better things. We'll hear how she, along with her husband, established their film studio, started a film club, and made their first film. We'll talk about how God can use artistic expression to impact and change lives. But first, if you're finding this podcast helpful, take a moment to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you think others would be interested in listening, please rate and review to make it easier for others to find. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or podchaser.com.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Geoffrey and Jaclyn Whitt.
Welcome to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. I'm Geoffrey Whitt.
And I'm Jaclyn Whitt.
And we're glad you're with us today. Today we're talking with Tara Massey.
Tara Massey is a mom of two, a loving wife, and a child of God. She's also an actress and a producer. She and her husband founded Dovelight Studios, which we'll be sure to talk about today. And she worked with Dean Cain on her most recent project, which she and her husband produced with their film club, which I am also excited to hear about.
Welcome, Tara.
Well, thank you. Good to be here with you.
Great to have you.
I want to learn about Dovelight Studios. How did you get started?
Yeah, well, thanks. So it's kind of a long story, but I'll keep it short. My husband, Jason, went to school for photography. I went to school for communications, and I took a lot of video courses. And before we got married, we were like, obviously, we're going to start a business, and it's going to be Dovelight Photography. And so we started this photography business, and Jason really was out in Hollywood at the time, and he had done some tours with Johnny Wright's entertainment group. He managed people like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Jonas Brothers. And so Jason got to be on tour with those guys doing some video work for them. He had a lot of really neat experiences, but didn't know the business end. And so when he met me, we were like, well, here we go.
Cool.
We were just good partners right out the bat. So we started Dovelight Photography. And at that point, we were in Michigan and we got married and we did a lot with weddings and families and businesses. And then 6 years later, we moved down to Greenville, South Carolina, and we've been here for 6 years. And we really switched our business over to mostly video, especially in 2020 when COVID hit. Everyone needed video. So we did a lot with that. And so we kind of were like, well, we're photo and video, but we're Dovelight Photography. And then I had a huge burnout in 2021 and 2022. I pretty much quit the business, and but things shifted. And it was a really good thing, and God really used that time. And so what happened was I said, Jason, I'm taking the kids. We're going to Atlanta, and we're going to do an acting class there.
Nice.
And Jason's like, okay, well, I'm going to come with you. And it was wonderful. So he came down, and we met a filmmaker there. And he said, you guys are really set up to make a film. Would you like to make a film? And we were like, okay, And so we have a studio in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, and it's a Hallmark town. It's really picturesque.
Nice.
And we're also near Bob Jones University, so there's a great amount of film students and a pretty good film industry here since we're about 2 hours from Atlanta and 2 hours from Charlotte. We have Wilmington, North Carolina, and Charleston, South Carolina, and all of those are good film production industries are in those areas. So we really didn't know at the time, just how amazing of an opportunity this was. But we felt like God was calling us to this. And so we were working with JC Films, and Jason Campbell, who started JC Films, he sent us a script, and it is called Do Not Grow Weary. And it was not completely finished. So me and a bunch of other volunteers got to learn a little bit about screenwriting and finish the script and go into pre-production and do what it takes to make a movie. So then that's what kind of turned into Dovelight Studios.
Awesome. We're going to talk more about Do Not Grow Weary, the film that you've produced, in our members only portion, because there's a lot. We won't get into it now, but I know that you've said that you've learned some things during that production. And so we're going to get into it a little bit later. Hope you all can join us for that. So tell me, what are you doing now with Dovelight Studios? You've switched over to Dovelight Studios instead of Dovelight Photography. So what are you doing and where are you going?
Yeah, great question. So First of all, I have to say how amazing it is that, our time as photographers and doing weddings and doing all kinds of different projects for the business world, commercials and promo videos, it really prepared us for the film industry. I couldn't believe how well all of our skills and things
Wow.
translated.
Interesting.
We still had to learn a lot, and we're still learning a lot.
Of course.
But I just have to put that out there if that encourages anyone. But Dove Light Studios is still working a lot with businesses. We no longer do weddings, but we also have a podcast called Movie Worthy Stories. And that's where I'm just collecting true stories from people, and they're sharing their testimonies and sharing just amazing things about what God has shown them through their journeys. And maybe their story is movie worthy, and we'll hopefully turn that into a movie.
So how closely do you, in your mind, tie that podcast with Dove Light Studios as far as what you just mentioned, the idea of possibly making one into a movie? And how much do you see it as kind of a standalone program? Tell us how you see it.
Yeah, sure. I guess I see myself as a producer. And so I would, produce the movie. My husband, Jason, he's definitely director of photography, an excellent director and colorist as well. And then we would, hire on crew and other people, screenwriters. And I also do some screenwriting, but Jaclyn, I don't trust myself as much as I trust you. You know that. So need a few more classes from you. So we would kind of handle the production of the movies. However, with the Movie Worthy Stories podcast, other filmmakers could say, hey, I really like this story. Could I, buy the rights to this story and create this as well? So so that's kind of how we see this working.
Yeah.
So you're creating potential opportunities for your guests.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool.
And also sharing their stories, because whether it's made into a movie or not, sometimes just sharing our testimonies, it has power, right? When God moves in our lives and we can talk about that and share that with people, it really empowers and inspires people. I know that I've shared testimonies and it's helpful. I think it even says in the Bible that it builds up the congregation, right? We can be built up in our faith. And for those that don't already have faith, it can challenge them or draw them in, because you can't argue with a testimony. This is what happened. It's not theology. It's just what happened.
That's right. Absolutely. I didn't know what to expect when I started interviewing people. Would I be getting more Christians? Would I be getting other people just sharing their stories? I have had a little of both, but most of the time it's someone who says, I really feel like the Lord is calling me to share my story, and it sounds like you might be giving me an opportunity. There are stories that are absolutely meant to be told. I believe every person's story is meant to be told and shared. But, the medium to tell that story might not be a movie, might be a book or
Right.
yeah, something like that.
Or a podcast. So what is the name of your podcast?
It's called Movie Worthy Stories.
Is it already published, or where can people find it?
So it's not yet published, but I'm very close to getting some up there. But it will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you get your podcast.
Awesome. Once it's going, go ahead and send us those links and we'll update our show notes. So for anybody who's listening in the future, go check the show notes and the links will be there.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll definitely do that.
So you also do some acting, am I correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Is that something you wanted since you were a child, or is this just something that kind of just happened recently? Where did that come from?
It's such a fun question to answer. I have always loved acting. And as a child, I did a lot of acting with, school plays. And I was involved with a really cool program that's still around. I was I don't know, I want to say I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was in The Wizard of Oz. I was a Munchkin, of course. And that was my very first show. I remember my lines still, and I remember the director, and she still has a really cool thing going called Children's Creations in Michigan. And then let's see, high school, I did some plays and theater. But then my youngest sister, I have 3 younger sisters, started going into acting, film acting, and she was getting pretty serious about it. And they saw that, she was doing a lot of background work and things like that. And at that point, I had a lot of interests, and I was in college. And I was really interested in ministry work. And so I was going to school for communications with some sociology classes and some ministry classes. I don't know. I had all kinds of interests. And I just saw her journey, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's what God's calling me to right now. And, I got married and really put acting on kind of just the off limits. That's just not going to be my life. So I let go of that. And when I was going through my burnout, I was asked, like, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I still didn't put acting on the table. I was like, well, I want to write. I think I'm going to write, And I do enjoy writing. I do need a creative outlet. But when this acting class came up and I saw it was just like, hey, it's in my budget and let's just do it,
That's a big part of it. That is a big part of it when it's in your budget. I can do this.
Yeah.
So if I'm correct, you are including your kids as well. You mentioned taking them to the acting class. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
How's that going?
Oh my goodness. They are so funny. My son Caleb started a YouTube channel, which you can go and find. He only has a few up, but it's called Caleb's Creature Adventures.
Okay, good.
And the kid is so good on camera.
Yeah. Well, we actually met at the Beyond Entertainment Festival in Florida. And so I saw he was in the acting track. And so he did, what did they call it again? Was it like a camera test or something?
Yeah, screen test.
Screen test?
Yep.
Okay, a screen test. And he was hilarious. And he knew it, but he was so good. Oh, yeah. His timing, his delivery, fantastic.
Aw, thank you. They love it. Eliana, she's so good on camera too. She's just a lot more shy about it. We'll get him out there.
We've got a special bonus episode coming up for you this week. On Wednesday, Jaclyn will be talking with Mark Stewart Iverson about his film For Profit. He's going to give us some background and a little teaser about the story, and they discuss the amazing acting and the many awards this film has already won. For Profit is truly an out-of-the-box, faith-based film, and we encourage you to go see it as we continue to support each other in the industry. Check back on Wednesday to hear it.
Damon has a demon.
Hey, idiot! We're family, you and I, all right?
People shove these in your mailbox. Do you read them?
The Archangel Raphael descends for you, Damon.
So God sent an angel.
Good morning, Joaquin. You have been, recruited, scouted, drafted for the army of the Most High. You have been chosen to save Mount Zion from destruction. Can I get an amen?
For Profit. In theaters June 21st. Visit forprofitfilm.com for tickets.
What kind of genre is your favorite?
I really love drama. I think my dream role would be more action. And in fact, I'm in a zombie movie and I get to chase and kill zombies and things like that. So that is kind of exciting for me. I'd like to try some comedy though as well. So
do you have background in athletic stuff? If you say you want action, do you have a background in any of that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm actually an ultra runner, which just means I run more than a marathon distance. So I tend to run 50Ks in the mountains on the trails. I love that.
Wow.
So I do love that and mountain climbing and rock climbing. And then, I just have loved spy shows growing up. And I'm like, I just want to be a ninja on TV. So maybe someday.
That's fun. So how has art, the performing arts, affected your life?
It's amazing. When I hit my burnout, I was really supporting Jason and, Dove Light photography. And I wasn't really doing a lot of creative things on my end. And it really led to a huge depression. And I would write here and there, but I don't think I was just using creativity to the potential that God intended for me to use it. And so pulling, I guess a talent off the back burner and putting it more forefront and just trusting the Lord, because I always felt like I didn't have time for this kind of thing. But I do believe that creativity holds eternal purpose in our daily work.
I agree.
So I will say that once I've gotten more into acting and even just doing the film, it brought out so much creativity, and inspiration. I started writing songs and I'm not a songwriter. It's just funny that all kinds of things.
All kinds of art.
But also what was really beautiful, I'd love to share this story. I went to the ICVM Storytellers Conference in Nashville, and this was this past November. And I went on November 15, and that happened to be the 17th anniversary of a loss that I experienced in my life. Back in November of 2006, I had a fiance who was killed in a car accident.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it, obviously God used that time to really shape my life and show himself to me. But when I went to this Storytellers Conference, I hope I don't cry, but I got to meet Mark Hall. He's the founder of Casting Crowns. And Casting Crowns was a huge band, at the time that Preston passed away. And what was so special about them is that their song, Who Am I, Preston and I sang a few months before he died at a cowboy church. And so that was like a ministry his family had. And then once he died, Casting Crown songs really impacted my life. They were a place of comfort for me. And when I heard Mark Hall's story, I had some pretty major takeaways. So let me give you background on Mark Hall. Mark was a youth pastor, and he took that very seriously. And when his music career started taking off, he said, I'm still going to be committed to pastoring these young kids every Sunday. So his deal was he had to be home by Sunday. And everyone thought, Mark, just let your music career take off. Like, the Lord is obviously putting you out there, so don't worry about this. He goes, no, that's something you would do. That's not me. God is calling me to serve these kids. And they, I believe, are also his inspiration for a lot of the songs. Mark had a really cool why, and his why was help the hurting. As you can tell with his songs, they really speak to the hurting. And so my takeaway was that he had a very strong why, and God used that in his art. But also he was diligent with the talents that God gave him, and he was obedient. And he didn't let it go to his head. He stayed humble because he knew it was the Lord. And I also love that Mark said he was terrified about getting his songs out there when he started writing them, because it's exactly how I feel with my art. It's terrifying putting out,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anytime you put anything out there, you're just opening yourself up for people to say whatever they want to say, and not everybody's nice.
Exactly.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah. Everyone has an opinion. But Mark was, he was obedient and he was diligent with his artwork. And so that spoke to me. But also, I knew that God doesn't need Mark. He doesn't need me. But just the fact that Mark was diligent and obedient, God chose to use his work, his songs in so many people's lives. And the Holy Spirit brought his songs to mind when I was going through some really tough times, including just times when I just wanted to end it all. I'm not going to say I was suicidal, but I will say gosh, you just sometimes get to these moments where life just is awful. You're kind of done, And I just remember the voice of truth, his song Voice of Truth coming to my head. Voice of Truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. And I realized oh, I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? And, just going through actually afraid of a lot. I didn't think I was, and it changes everything. So the Holy Spirit really does use our art.
Looking for festivals to enter your faith-based or family-friendly screenplay? Faith and Family Screenwriting Awards is now open for the winter 2025 season. Enter now to get the super early bird rates. Top prize, a table read with professional actors cast by Gene Wanger of Treasure Coast Talent. There are laurels available in 19 categories, and all participants get free bonus admission to our winter screenwriting bootcamp. Join online from anywhere. 3 high-value workshops with top instructors all in one day. That alone is worth the cost of your submission fee. The super early bird deadline is June 15th. Submit your script today to get the super reduced lowest price of the season. Faith and Family Screenwriting Awards. Find it at faffassociation.com or Film Freeway. Before we finish up this portion of our interview, I'd like to invite you to go deeper in our discussion with Tara Massey in Part 2, our exclusive members episode. What's it like to be part of a film club? Is it worth it? What are the challenges? We're going to do a deep dive with Tara about her experience launching a film club and making their first film. We'll hear about the collaborative and creative effort, fundraising and community support, and the importance of professional involvement. If you've ever thought about joining or even starting a film club, don't miss this episode. You can hear Tara's bonus episode and our complete catalog of exclusive episodes by becoming a supporting member. $5 a month helps support the production of this podcast and doubles the inspiring content you receive each week. Sign up now and get the first month free. You can find the link in the show notes or simply go to faffpodcast.com/support.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, my mom told me when I was younger, I used to fight going to piano lessons because I loved piano until I went to lessons, and then I didn't like it anymore. But she was like, no, you have a gift. You need to, discipline yourself and learn and whatever. And so I said, well, put me in something else then. Put me in swimming so I can learn how to save a life or something. And she said, you could save a life with music. And I kind of rolled my eyes because I was a kid. But I've realized that actually music really can touch people and especially in moments where they're feeling very deeply and having very difficult emotions. Music can just break through and connect so quickly. So, yeah, I definitely can agree with you. And I think movies, too. Movies can inspire people because you go on an emotional journey. And so it's the same thing where you can connect emotionally with someone and see what they think about a situation, and learn how to feel the way that they feel, which could mean that there's hope.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things we definitely want to give to the
absolutely.
world.
Yeah, they do have an amazing amount of impact. And I love that.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts before we finish off this portion of our interview? And then we're going to head into our members only portion where we're going to hear more about your movie and the things that you learned producing that.
But at least tell us about the movie now, the name, if there's any links associated with it and such. We'll want to make sure we get that in.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie is so special. It was our first full feature. We had Dean Cain in it, which was a lot of fun. He was really great to work with. He was Superman in the 90s.
Yes, I remember.
And the movie is called Do Not Grow Weary, which was so perfect for us, all of our cast and crew. We all had these testimonies of how that title spoke to us, even though we talked about changing this title like 100 times. So then we were like, no, it's speaking to us. Let's keep it. It's about a young attorney who takes over her father's practice, and he passes away suddenly. And she's going through her father's files and she finds some evidence that would have exonerated her father's client, but it was never presented in court. And so she's going to try to reopen this case and see what was going on here. And this guy has now served 10 years in prison. And so it kind of has a modern day Joseph story in there. But it's a really wonderful faith-based film. And I'm excited to get it out there. You can find a trailer on YouTube.
Awesome.
You can just search Do Not Grow Weary trailer or go to our website, dngwmovie.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you more in the members only portion.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.